welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. The day begins like any other. My phone's alarm buzzes with a familiar and annoying persistence, dragging me from the clutches of sleep. I reach out blindly, slapping the snooze button more out of habit than necessity. But today, the usual comfort of those extra 10 minutes doesn't come. There's a strange heaviness in the air, an ominous feeling that crawls under my skin. Josh, wake up. Emily's voice calls out from the bathroom. She sounds cheerful, the way she always does in the morning, and for a moment, I want to believe that everything is normal. That life is just as it's always been. But the unease gnaws at me. Yeah, I'm up, I mumble, rubbing my face as I sit up on the edge of the bed. The light from the bathroom spills into the room, casting long shadows on the walls. I catch a glimpse of Emily in the mirror, her blonde hair cascading over her shoulders as she applies her makeup. She's humming softly, a tune I recognize but can't place. I stand, stretching out the stiffness from my limbs, and head to the bathroom. Emily gives me a quick peck on the cheek as I pass her. Her lipstick leaves a faint mark, but I don't bother wiping it off. Instead, I lean over the sink, splashing cold water on my face, trying to shake the strange feeling. "You're quiet this morning," she says, glancing at me through the mirror. Her eyes are bright, too bright, like she's forcing cheerfulness. "Just tired," I reply, avoiding her gaze as I dry my face with a towel. "Long day ahead?" she asks, brushing out her hair. I nod, but my thoughts are elsewhere. My mind drifts back to the unsettling dreams I had last night, dreams where shadows whispered secrets I couldn't quite hear. "I'll make us some breakfast," she says, walking out of the bathroom before I can respond. I linger for a moment, staring at my reflection. There's something off, something that feels just out of reach. With a sigh, I push the thoughts aside and get ready for the day. By the time I make it downstairs, Emily has already set the table. Scrambled eggs, toast, and coffee, simple, yet comforting. She's scrolling through her phone, her face half hidden behind the screen. I sit down, picking at my food without much appetite. Emily's phone buzzes, and she quickly turns it over, face down on the table. "Work stuff?" I ask, trying to sound casual. "Yeah, just some emails," she replies, too quickly. Her smile doesn't reach her eyes. "Everything okay?" I press, feeling the need to break through whatever wall she's putting up. "Of course, why wouldn't it be?" she says with a laugh that sounds forced. I don't push further. Instead, I finish my coffee, kiss her on the cheek, and grab my keys. The commute to the office is uneventful, but the tension from the morning follows me, sticking to me like a second skin. As I pull into the parking lot, I see a familiar figure standing by the entrance. Claire. My ex-wife. The last person I expected, or wanted, to see. What the hell is she doing here? I mutter to myself, my heart rate picking up. Claire spots me and waves, a smile that is equal parts sweet and sinister playing on her lips. My stomach twists as I step out of the car, my mind racing with possibilities, none of them good. "Josh, long time no see," she says, her voice dripping with a familiarity that makes my skin crawl. "Claire," I say curtly, "what are you doing here?" "Just thought I'd drop by," she says, her tone light, as if she hadn't torn my life apart 2 years ago. "I don't have time for this," I reply, moving to walk past her. But she steps in front of me, blocking my path. "We need to talk," she says, her voice dropping to a whisper. "There's nothing to talk about," I snap, but she shakes her head. "Oh, I think there is," she replies, her eyes narrowing. "You're in for a surprise, Josh." I open my mouth to respond, but the office doors swing open and my boss, Mark, steps out. He's laughing, but it dies on his lips when he sees me. There's a flicker of guilt in his eyes, and it's then that I know something is seriously wrong. "Josh, we should go inside," Mark says, his voice strained. Claire gives me a knowing look before turning and walking away, her heels clicking against the pavement. Inside the office, the atmosphere is thick with unease. Mark leads me to his office without a word, and the silence feels suffocating. As we step inside, he closes the door, but not before I catch a glimpse of Emily at a desk. She's in my office, and the sight sends a jolt of confusion and anger through me. "Mark, what's going on?" I demand, my voice hard. "Josh, sit down," he says, avoiding my eyes. "I'd rather stand," I reply, crossing my arms over my chest. He sighs, running a hand through his thinning hair. "Look, there's no easy way to say this, but we're letting you go." I stare at him, disbelief and anger warring within me. "What? You're firing me? For what?" "It's not personal," he begins, but I cut him off. "Not personal? Then what the hell is it?" I snap. "There's been concerns raised about your performance," he says, finally meeting my gaze. "By who?" I ask, my mind racing. Mark hesitates, and that's when it hits me. "Emily," I say, my voice barely more than a whisper. He nods slowly. "Emily and Claire." The world tilts on its axis, and for a moment, I feel like I'm free-falling. I grip the back of a chair to steady myself, my knuckles white. "They said things that made it impossible for us to keep you on board," Mark says, his voice barely above a murmur. My mind is reeling, trying to piece together the betrayal that's unfolding before me. "You can't be serious," I say, my voice hoarse. "I'm sorry, Josh." "Truly, I am," he says, and for the first time, I see the guilt etched on his face. "Get out of my sight," I whisper, rage bubbling up within me. Mark doesn't argue. He slips out of the office, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I stand there, fists clenched, staring at the wall as the reality of what just happened sinks in. My wife and my ex-wife have conspired against me, and now I'm left with nothing. But this isn't over. Not by a long shot. I storm out of the office, ignoring the stares of my former colleagues, and head straight home. The drive is a blur, my mind fixated on one thing: revenge. When I get home, Emily is already there, lounging on the couch like nothing has happened. She looks up as I walk in, her expression carefully neutral. "How could you?" I demand, my voice shaking with anger. Emily stands, her eyes cold. "You were in the way, Josh. Claire and I, we have our plans." "Plans?" I echo, disbelief coloring my tone. "What plans?" She smirks, a look that makes my blood run cold. "You'll find out soon enough." I feel a surge of fury unlike anything I've ever felt before. Without thinking, I grab her arm and drag her to the door. "Get out," I growl, shoving her outside. She stumbles, surprise flashing across her face before it hardens into anger. "You'll regret this," she spits. "Not as much as you will," I reply, slamming the door in her face. I stand there for a moment, breathing heavily, my heart racing. The house feels empty without her, but it's a relief. I need space to think, to plan my next move. Because this isn't the end. It's just the beginning. And I'll make sure they pay for what they've done. As I lean against the door, I know one thing for certain: I won't stop until I've taken back everything they've stolen from me. I stand in the middle of my living room, the silence pressing in on me. The house feels different now, colder, as if the betrayal has soaked into the walls. Emily is gone, but the echo of her presence lingers, taunting me. I take a deep breath, trying to steady the storm of emotions swirling inside me. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. I need to get out of here, clear my head, and figure out my next move. Without thinking, I grab my jacket and head for the door. As I step outside, the crisp evening air hits me, refreshing and grounding. I start walking, my feet carrying me without direction. I don't have a destination in mind, but I know I need to talk to someone, anyone who might help me make sense of this mess. My mind drifts to Derek, my oldest friend and the one person I can trust implicitly. He's always been there for me, through thick and thin, and if anyone can help me navigate this nightmare, it's him. I pull out my phone and dial his number, my fingers trembling slightly as I wait for him to pick up. Josh, what's up? Derek's voice is casual, but I can hear the undercurrent of concern. Derek, I start, my voice hoarse. I need to see you. Now. There's a pause on the other end, and I can practically hear him frowning. You okay, man? You sound off. I'm not okay, I admit, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. Something's happened, and I need your help. Where are you? He asks, his tone shifting to something more serious. I'm heading to the bar, the one on 5th, I reply. It's our usual spot, a quiet place where we can talk without interruption. Give me 20 minutes, he says, and I can hear him moving, probably grabbing his keys. I'll meet you there. Thanks, Derek, I say, relief flooding through me. I hang up and quicken my pace, needing the comfort of familiarity and a friend's presence. When I arrive at the bar, it's just starting to get busy. The low hum of conversations and the clinking of glasses provide a backdrop that helps dull the edge of my anxiety. I find a booth in the back and slide in, my mind still reeling from the day's events. Derek arrives exactly when he said he would, his tall frame and broad shoulders cutting through the crowd effortlessly. He spots me and makes his way over, concern etched on his face. Josh, what the hell happened? He asks as he sits down across from me, his eyes scanning my face for answers. I take a deep breath, trying to find the right words. Emily and Claire, they've screwed me over, Derek. They've taken everything. He raises an eyebrow, clearly confused. Start from the beginning, man. I need details. I lean forward, lowering my voice as I recount the events of the day. From finding Claire at the office to the moment I was fired, and finally, to kicking Emily out of the house. Derek listens intently, his expression shifting from confusion to anger as the story unfolds. That's insane, he says when I finish, running a hand through his short-cropped hair. Why would they do this? And together? What's their angle? I don't know, I admit, frustration seeping into my voice. But they've been planning this for a while. Claire showing up, Emily already in my office, it's too perfect. They must have been working on this for months. Derek nods slowly, his eyes narrowing as he processes everything. They've got something on Mark, that's for sure. No way he'd just go along with this unless they had leverage. I thought about that too, I say, feeling a surge of anger. But I can't figure out what it could be. We need more information, Derek says firmly. We need to figure out what they're after and how they're pulling the strings. But we can't do this alone. I frown, not liking where this is going. What do you mean? We need help, he continues, his tone decisive. We need someone who can dig deeper, someone with access to the kind of information we don't have. I open my mouth to argue, but he holds up a hand, cutting me off. Hear me out, Josh. You remember Zoe? The name sends a jolt through me, a mix of nostalgia and unease. Zoe was a mutual friend from our college days, brilliant and resourceful but always skirting the edge of legality. She had a knack for finding things out, things people wanted to keep hidden. Zoe? I echo, unsure. I haven't seen her in years. I have, Derek says, a slight grin tugging at his lips. She's still around, still doing her thing. And she owes me a favor. I hesitate, the thought of involving Zoe bringing back memories of late-night escapades and questionable decisions. But as I weigh my options, I realize Derek is right. We're out of our depth here, and Zoe might be our best shot at getting answers. Okay, I say finally, nodding. Let's talk to her. Derek smiles, pulling out his phone. I'll give her a call. If anyone can help us figure out what's going on, it's Zoe. As Derek steps outside to make the call, I lean back in the booth, my mind racing. The bar's atmosphere, usually comforting, feels suffocating now. The sound of laughter and clinking glasses grates on my nerves, a sharp contrast to the turmoil inside me. I close my eyes, trying to calm the storm within, but all I can see is Emily's cold, calculating smile and Claire's knowing smirk. Minutes later, Derek returns, his expression unreadable. She's in, he says simply, sliding back into the booth. Wants to meet us at her place. I nod, grateful for his quick action. Let's go then. The drive to Zoe's place is tense, the car filled with unspoken worries and unasked questions. Derek keeps his eyes on the road, his fingers drumming against the steering wheel, while I stare out the window, lost in thought. The city's lights blur past, an indifferent backdrop to the chaos unfolding in my life. When we arrive at Zoe's building, a nondescript apartment complex in a quieter part of town, I feel a pang of nostalgia. This place hasn't changed much since our college days, though it's a bit more worn around the edges. We make our way up the narrow staircase to the third floor, where Zoe's apartment is. Derek knocks on the door, and it swings open almost immediately. Zoe stands there, a small smile on her lips. She's just as I remember, short, with sharp features and piercing blue eyes that seem to see right through you. Her dark hair is tied back in a messy bun, and she's dressed casually in jeans and a hoodie, but there's an air of confidence about her that's unmistakable. Long time no see, boys, she says, stepping aside to let us in. Zoe, I greet her, trying to muster a smile. She gives me a once-over, her smile fading as she takes in my disheveled appearance. Derek filled me in a bit. Sounds like you're in some deep shit, Josh. You have no idea, I mutter, following her into the living room. The place is cluttered but cozy, with mismatched furniture and bookshelves overflowing with everything from tech manuals to classic literature. There's a faint smell of coffee and something herbal in the air, adding to the lived-in feel of the space. Zoe gestures for us to sit down, and we do, sinking into a worn-out couch. She perches on the edge of an armchair, her eyes sharp and focused. Tell me everything, she says, leaning forward. I recount the events once more, this time with Derek chiming in with his observations. Zoe listens without interrupting, her expression unreadable. When we finish, she sits back, tapping her fingers against her lips in thought. They're playing a long game, she says finally, her voice thoughtful. This isn't just about screwing you over, Josh. There's something bigger at play. Like what? I ask, my frustration bubbling up again. I don't know yet, she admits, her eyes narrowing. But we'll find out. I'll need some time to dig around, see what I can uncover. In the meantime, you two need to stay under the radar. Don't do anything that might tip them off that you're onto them. Got it, Derek says, glancing at me. I nod in agreement, though the idea of sitting back and waiting makes my skin crawl. But Zoe is right, we need to be smart about this. What do you need from us? I ask, eager to contribute. Just stay in touch, Zoe replies, standing up. I'll let you know as soon as I have something. We exchange numbers and make plans to meet again in a few days. As Derek and I leave Zoe's apartment, I feel a strange mix of hope and dread. We have an ally now, someone who knows how to navigate the shadows where Emily and Claire are hiding their secrets. But I can't shake the feeling that we're only scratching the surface of something much darker and more dangerous than I ever imagined. As we drive back to my place, the city lights flickering in the rearview mirror, I know one thing for certain: whatever happens next, I won't go down without a fight. The next few days are a blur of anxiety and impatience. Every hour that passes feels like a year, and every phone call or text from Derek makes my heart skip a beat, hoping it's news from Zoe. But the silence stretches on, and with it, the tension builds, tightening like a vice around my chest. I try to keep busy, but my thoughts always circle back to the same dark place. Emily and Claire, two women who once meant everything to me, have conspired to destroy my life. The betrayal festers like a wound that refuses to heal, the pain only intensifying with each passing day. On the third day, my phone buzzes with a message from Derek: Zoe has something. Meet at her place in 30. My heart races as I grab my keys and head out the door. The drive to Zoe's is a blur, my mind racing with possibilities. When I finally arrive, I find Derek already there, leaning against the wall outside Zoe's apartment, his expression tense. "Hey," he says, straightening up as I approach. "You ready for this?" "Ready as I'll ever be," I reply, though my voice betrays the nervous energy thrumming beneath the surface. Derek knocks on the door, and Zoe opens it almost immediately, her expression unreadable. She steps aside to let us in, and we follow her into the living room, where the familiar clutter now feels like a comfort rather than chaos. "Take a seat," she says, gesturing to the couch. "We've got a lot to talk about." Derek and I sit down, our eyes fixed on Zoe as she pulls up a chair and sits opposite us. She leans forward, her elbows resting on her knees, and takes a deep breath before speaking. "I've been digging around," she begins, her tone serious. "And what I've found, well, it's complicated." "Complicated how?" I ask, my stomach knotting with dread. "Emily and Claire aren't just after your job, Josh," Zoe says, her eyes locking onto mine. "They're after everything." I frown, not understanding. "What do you mean, everything?" Zoe pulls out her phone and swipes through it before handing it to me. On the screen is an email thread, one that appears to be between Emily and Claire. The subject lines and snippets of messages are enough to make my blood run cold. "They're planning to take control of your assets," Zoe explains, her voice grim. "Your house, your savings, everything you've worked for. They've been setting this up for months, using their connections and exploiting legal loopholes. They've even got a lawyer in their pocket, someone who's been advising them on how to make it look legitimate." I stare at the screen, my mind reeling. The words blur together as the full weight of what Zoe is saying sinks in. This isn't just a betrayal, it's a full-blown conspiracy. "They can't do this," I say, my voice shaking with anger. "There's no way they can just take everything from me." "They can, and they will if we don't stop them," Zoe says firmly. "But there's more." I look up at her, dread pooling in my stomach. "What else?" Zoe hesitates, glancing at Derek before continuing. I dug into Mark's involvement. Turns out, he's in deep with some very shady people who would be very interested in the kind of information Emily and Claire are peddling. "Information?" Derek interjects, leaning forward. "Corporate secrets, sensitive data," Zoe clarifies. "Emily and Claire have been feeding Mark intel that could cripple his competitors. In exchange, he's been helping them with their plan against you." I feel like the ground is shifting beneath my feet, the sheer scope of the betrayal expanding in all directions. "So, what do we do?" I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. "We need to expose them," Zoe says, her eyes hard. "We need to gather evidence, real, concrete evidence that links them to these crimes. Once we have that, we can take it to the authorities, or better yet, use it as leverage to force them to back off." "But how?" I ask, feeling overwhelmed. They're already so far ahead. Zoe gives me a determined look. We're not as far behind as you think. I've got a plan, but it's going to require all of us. Derek and I exchange a glance, and I can see the resolve in his eyes. We're in, he says, speaking for both of us. Zoe nods, standing up and pacing the room as she lays out the plan. First, we need to secure your assets, Josh. That means transferring everything you can into accounts they can't touch and changing the locks on your house. I've got a friend who can help with that, someone who knows how to keep things under the radar. I nod, already making a mental checklist. What about the evidence? That's where Derek comes in, Zoe continues, glancing at him. You're going to get close to Mark, find out what he's really up to and who he's working with. If we can connect him to these people, we can unravel this whole scheme. Derek nods, determination etched on his face. Consider it done. And me? I ask, eager to contribute. You're going to do what you do best, Zoe says, her eyes locking onto mine. You're going to confront Emily and Claire. Make them think you're backing down, that you're willing to negotiate. We need them to slip up, say something they shouldn't. We'll be recording everything, so all you have to do is get them talking. The idea of facing them again makes my skin crawl, but I know it's necessary. I take a deep breath and nod. I'll do it. Good, Zoe says, her tone final. We'll meet back here in a week, see what we've got. And remember, stay under the radar. We can't afford any mistakes. We all stand, the weight of what's to come settling over us like a heavy fog. As Derek and I make our way to the door, Zoe pulls me aside, her expression softening slightly. Josh, she says quietly, I know this is a lot, but you're not alone in this. We've got your back. I nod, grateful for her words, but the fear still gnaws at me. Thanks, Zoe. I just want this to be over. It will be, she promises. One way or another, we'll get through this. With that, I leave Zoe's apartment, the plan running through my mind on a loop. The next few days are going to be crucial, and I can't afford to mess this up. The drive home is quiet, Derek and I lost in our own thoughts. When we finally pull up to my house, he turns to me, his expression serious. You sure you're ready for this? He asks. Do I have a choice? I reply, trying to muster a smile. He sighs, nodding. Just be careful, okay? These people, they're dangerous. I will be, I assure him, though the truth is, I have no idea what to expect. After Derek leaves, I step inside the house, the silence pressing in on me once more. I move through the rooms, checking the windows and doors, making sure everything is locked tight. Zoe's words echo in my mind, secure your assets. I sit down at my computer, the glow of the screen illuminating the dark room, and begin the process of moving my accounts, changing passwords, and doing everything I can to put distance between myself and the women who betrayed me. Hours later, I finally shut down the computer, exhaustion pulling at me. As I crawl into bed, the weight of what lies ahead settles over me. Tomorrow, I'll have to face Emily and Claire, confront them with a lie in hopes of uncovering the truth. The thought makes my stomach churn, but I push it aside. I close my eyes, but sleep doesn't come easily. My mind races, replaying every conversation, every betrayal, every hurt. The faces of Emily and Claire loom large in my thoughts, their smiles twisted by the knowledge of what they've done. But as the night drags on, a steely resolve forms within me. I won't let them win. I won't let them take everything I've built, everything I've worked for. Morning comes all too soon, and with it, a renewed sense of purpose. I dress carefully, choosing clothes that project confidence and control, and then I pick up the phone and dial Emily's number. It rings twice before she answers, her voice deceptively sweet. Josh. We need to talk, I say, keeping my tone neutral. There's a pause, and I can almost hear the wheels turning in her head. All right, she says finally. When and where? I suggest a coffee shop downtown, a place we used to go to when things were good between us. It's public, neutral ground, and hopefully, a place where she'll feel safe enough to let her guard down. I'll be there, she says before hanging up. I stare at the phone for a moment, my heart pounding in my chest. This is it, the beginning of the end. I head out, the morning sun casting long shadows on the pavement as I walk to my car. The drive to the coffee shop is tense, every turn bringing me closer to the confrontation I've been dreading. When I arrive, I see Emily already there, sitting at a table by the window, her back to the wall. I take a deep breath, steeling myself, and then walk inside. As I approach the table, she looks up, a smile curving her lips, but her eyes are cold, calculating. Josh, she says, her tone warm, but the underlying chill sends a shiver down my spine. It's good to see you. Emily, I reply, forcing a smile as I sit down across from her. We need to talk. I sit across from Emily, the hum of the coffee shop surrounding us like a blanket of normalcy. But there's nothing normal about this. The air between us is charged, a silent battle of wills playing out in the space of a few feet. She's dressed impeccably, as always, her blonde hair perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. But I can see the glint of steel in her eyes, the careful calculation behind her every move. Josh, she says again, her voice syrupy sweet. You wanted to talk. I take a deep breath, forcing myself to meet her gaze without flinching. Yeah, we need to clear the air. She tilts her head slightly, as if considering my words. Clear the air. About what? About everything, I say, keeping my voice steady. About what you've been doing behind my back. About you and Claire. For a moment, a flicker of surprise crosses her face, quickly replaced by a practiced mask of concern. Josh, I don't know what you're talking about. Claire and we've been friends for a long time, but we've never done anything to hurt you. The lies spill from her lips so easily, but I've come prepared. I reach into my pocket, pulling out my phone, and place it on the table between us. Her eyes dart to it, a flash of unease breaking through her calm facade. I know everything, Emily, I say quietly, watching her carefully. I know about the plan to take my job, my money, everything. I know about Mark and the information you've been feeding him. Her eyes widen just a fraction before narrowing, a predatory gleam replacing the feigned innocence. You've been spying on me. I had to, I reply, leaning forward. You left me no choice. She laughs, a cold, brittle sound that sends a chill down my spine. You think you're clever, don't you, Josh? But you're too late. Everything is already in motion. I nod, acknowledging the truth of her words. Maybe. But it's not over yet. Just then, the door to the coffee shop opens, and I glance up to see Claire walk in. She spots us immediately, her eyes locking onto mine with a predatory gleam. She's dressed to kill, all sharp angles and smoldering confidence. She strides over to our table, her heels clicking against the floor like the ticking of a clock. Well, Claire says, sliding into the seat next to Emily. This is cozy. I don't respond, my eyes flicking between the two women. The atmosphere is suffocating, thick with tension and unspoken threats. What do you want, Josh? Claire asks, her voice dripping with disdain. Why the sudden need to have a heart-to-heart? I want to know why, I say, my voice low and controlled. Why the two of you decided to destroy my life. Emily and Claire exchange a glance, a silent conversation passing between them. Then Emily leans back, crossing her arms over her chest. Why not, she says, her tone flippant. You were in the way, Josh. You always have been. In the way of what? I press, my frustration bubbling to the surface. What did I ever do to you? Claire smirks, her eyes gleaming with malice. You were too trusting, too naive. We knew you'd never see it coming. I feel the anger rise in me, hot and blinding. So this was all just a game to you. Everything we had, everything I worked for, it was all just a setup. Emily shrugs, her expression cold. It wasn't personal, Josh. It was business. The casual cruelty of her words hits me like a punch to the gut. I've known for days now that they were conspiring against me, but hearing it from their own lips makes it real in a way that nothing else could. But before I can respond, my phone buzzes on the table. I glance down to see a message from Derek. We've got them. Get out of there now. Relief floods through me, but I keep my expression neutral as I stand up, pocketing my phone. Emily and Claire exchange another glance, suspicion flickering in their eyes. Where are you going? Emily asks, her tone laced with suspicion. This conversation is over, I say, turning to leave. Claire stands, blocking my path. Not so fast, Josh. We're not done here. Yes, we are, I reply, my voice firm. You've made your choices, and now I'm making mine. For a moment, she looks like she's about to lash out, but something in my expression stops her. She steps aside, and I walk out of the coffee shop, my heart pounding in my chest. The sunlight outside feels harsh, too bright after the darkness of the conversation inside. Derek is waiting for me around the corner, leaning against his car. When he sees me, he pushes off and walks over, his expression tense. Did it work? I ask, trying to keep the hope out of my voice. He nods, his eyes scanning the street behind me. Zoe and I got everything we need. The recordings, the documents, it's all there. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. And the lawyer? Zoe's handling it, Derek says, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. She's got connections. They're already drawing up papers to nullify the transfers and take action against Mark. I nod, feeling the weight on my shoulders lighten just a fraction. Good. Let's get this over with. We head back to Zoe's apartment, where she's waiting for us with a triumphant grin. She's already got her laptop open, the screen displaying a wealth of information, emails, recordings, and documents, all neatly organized. It's all here, Zoe says, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Every dirty detail. They're not just going to lose everything they've tried to steal, they're going to pay for what they've done. I stare at the screen, the evidence of betrayal laid out in cold, hard facts. It's overwhelming, but it's also vindicating. Finally, I have the proof I need to take them down. Now what? I ask, looking between Derek and Zoe. Now we make sure they can't do this to anyone else, Zoe replies, her tone firm. I'm sending this to the authorities, and I've got a reporter lined up who's very interested in a story like this. And what about us? Derek asks, his expression cautious. We disappear, Zoe says with a shrug. We've done our part. Let the law and the media handle the rest. I nod, the reality of the situation settling over me. This chapter of my life is coming to a close, but the scars will remain. Emily and Claire's betrayal has cut deep, and it will take time to heal. As we finalize the details, my phone buzzes again. It's a text from an unknown number. Meet me at the old warehouse on 5th, alone. We need to talk. I show the message to Derek and Zoe, who exchange worried glances. It's a trap, Derek says immediately, his voice tense. You can't go. But something in me rebels at the idea of running away. I've been on the defensive for too long, and I need to see this through to the end. I'm going, I say, determination hardening my voice. I need to face them one last time. Zoe looks like she's about to argue, but then she sighs, nodding. We'll be close by. If anything goes wrong, we'll be there. I thank them both, then head out, my mind racing with possibilities. The drive to the warehouse is tense, every muscle in my body coiled like a spring. When I arrive, the area is deserted, the sun casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. I step out of the car, the silence pressing in around me. The warehouse looms ahead, its broken windows and rusted metal exterior giving it an air of desolation. I walk towards it, each step heavy with anticipation. Inside, the air is stale and thick with dust. I hear the echo of my footsteps as I make my way deeper into the building, the shadows lengthening with each step. And then I see them, Emily and Claire, standing side by side in the center of the room. You came, Emily says, her voice echoing in the empty space. There's a cold smile on her lips, but her eyes are hard, devoid of any warmth. Of course I did, I reply, keeping my voice steady. Why did you want to meet here? We wanted to make sure there were no interruptions, Claire says, her tone dripping with malice. I nod, already expecting as much. So, what's your plan now? Threaten me? Try to scare me off? Emily takes a step forward, her smile widening. Oh, Josh. We're beyond threats. You've lost. We've won. I shake my head, feeling a grim satisfaction as I pull out my phone. You really think so? I press a button, and the room is filled with the sound of their voices, Emily and Claire, admitting to everything, their plans, their betrayal. The shock on their faces is palpable, their confident facade cracking. You've been recording us. Claire hisses, her eyes blazing with fury. You didn't leave me much choice, I reply, my voice hard. This ends now. The silence that follows is thick with tension, the reality of their situation sinking in. Emily's face pales, her bravado slipping away. Claire looks like she's about to explode, but before she can react, the sound of approaching footsteps fills the air. Derek and Zoe step out of the shadows, followed by two men I recognize as private investigators Zoe had mentioned. The men move swiftly, securing Emily and Claire with handcuffs before they can even think of resisting. This is over, Zoe says, her voice firm as she steps forward. You're done. Emily looks at me, her eyes filled with a mix of rage and something else, something like regret. But I don't waver, my resolve unbroken. You'll regret this, Josh, she spits, her voice trembling with anger. You'll regret everything. Maybe, I reply, meeting her gaze one last time. But at least I can live with myself. As they're led away, the weight on my shoulders begins to lift. It's over. The nightmare is finally over. Derek and Zoe walk over to me, their expressions a mix of relief and concern. You okay? Derek asks, his hand resting on my shoulder. I nod, though the reality of what just happened is still sinking in. Yeah. I think I will be. Zoe gives me a small, encouraging smile. You did the right thing, Josh. They won't hurt anyone else now. I take a deep breath, letting the air fill my lungs. Thanks, Zoe. For everything. She nods, and for a moment, we all just stand there, the weight of the situation settling over us. I think it's time to move on, Derek says quietly, his voice filled with a kind of finality. Yeah, I agree, looking around the empty warehouse one last time. Time to start over. As we leave the warehouse, the sun is beginning to set, casting a golden light over the city. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that I'm free from the lies, the betrayal, and the pain that has haunted me for so long. And as we drive away, I feel something I haven't felt in a long time, hope.